Imagine waking up right now, looking out your window, and realizing that everyone you love is actively trying to get you killed. If you do not betray them first, you will be executed by sunset. Your own mother, your brother, they are not your family. They are your competition for survival. This is not a dystopian movie. This is the exact reality of the most secretive and most brutal place on Earth. A place that the government of North Korea officially says does not even exist. Welcome to the political prison camps. For a long time, the world knew almost nothing about these places. We had satellite photos showing massive fences, guard towers, and endless rows of barracks hidden deep in the frozen mountains. But we did not know what happened inside. Until one man managed to do the impossible. He crossed the electrified fence. He survived the freezing wilderness. He made it to the free world. His name is Shin Dong-hyuk. But the story you might have heard about him, the one that sold millions of books and made headlines around the entire world, it was hiding a terrible secret. A secret born of trauma, shame, and survival. Today, we are going to look at the true, updated story of his life and his escape. What really happened is actually much darker, much more twisted, and ultimately, far more terrifying than the original tale. To understand why Shin changed his story, you have to understand how his brain was wired from birth. If you or I were thrown into a prison camp today, we would carry our memories of freedom with us. We would know what a cheeseburger tastes like. We would know the warmth of a comfortable bed. We would know what it feels like to hug someone we love. We would have hope. Shin had none of that. He was born inside Camp 14 in 1982. He was the product of a reward marriage. In this system, if two prisoners work extremely hard and obey every single rule, the guards might reward them by allowing them to sleep together for a few nights a year. If a child is born from this arrangement, that child is automatically a prisoner for life. This is the North Korean policy of guilt by association. If your grandfather committed a crime against the state, perhaps by questioning the supreme leader or trying to flee to the south during the Korean War, 3 generations of your family must be punished. Shin did not know why he was there. He just knew he belonged to the guards. When he was 6 years old, his family was transferred to Camp 18, a slightly different facility, but the rules were exactly the same. And the first rule you learn is that you have no family. Your mother is just another prisoner who competes with you for the microscopic rations of corn and salted cabbage. Shin remembers his mother as a competitor for survival. When he was hungry, he would sneak into her room and steal her food. She would beat him for it. There was no love. There was only hunger. You might expect that the prisoners would band together to fight their oppressors. That is what happens in Hollywood movies. The inmates form an alliance, they keep secrets from the guards, and they plan a heroic uprising. But the reality of Camp 18 was the exact opposite of a movie. The system was designed to make every single prisoner a spy. If you caught someone breaking a rule and reported them, you got extra food. If you saw someone breaking a rule and you stayed silent, you were executed alongside them. The psychological manipulation was absolute. Shin learned this lesson very early. He watched a teacher beat a 6-year-old girl to death right in front of the entire class. Her crime? She had hidden a few kernels of corn in her pocket. The children were completely silent. The next day, when she did not show up to class, Shin and his classmates went to her house. Her mother told them she was dead. Shin felt nothing but fear. He realized that to survive, he had to become the ultimate rule follower. When Shin was a teenager, he woke up one night and heard whispering. It was his mother and his brother. They were planning something unthinkable. They were planning to escape. Now, ask yourself what you would do in that exact situation. You would probably help them, or maybe even join them. You would protect your family. But Shin's mind had not been shaped by a free society. His brain had been programmed by a system that equated obedience with morality. To him, his mother and brother were not brave rebels. They were dangerous criminals who were putting his own life in direct jeopardy. If the guards found out they escaped, Shin would be tortured and killed simply for being related to them. So, Shin did what the system had trained him to do since birth. He ran to a guard. He betrayed his own mother. He betrayed his own brother. He told the authorities everything he had heard. He expected a reward. He expected a full bowl of rice. Instead of a reward, the guards arrested him too. They did not believe he was innocent. They threw him into an underground cell. But eventually they realized he was telling the truth. He was the informant. They released him from the dark, but what they made him do next would haunt him for the rest of his life. They dragged him out into a massive courtyard. The entire camp was assembled. Shin was forced to stand in the front row and watch as his mother was hanged by the neck. Then, he watched as his brother was tied to a wooden stake and executed by firing squad. For years, when Shin told this story to the world, he claimed he felt a deep, agonizing sorrow. He claimed he wept. But that was a lie. That was the sanitized version he told to protect himself from the judgment of free people. The horrifying truth, which he finally admitted in 2015, was that as he watched his family die, he felt they deserved it. He was angry at them for breaking the rules and endangering his life. He felt absolutely no remorse at the time. You might think that after witnessing this, Shin would be permanently broken, destined to die in the coal mines. But human psychology is incredibly resilient, and desperation makes people do unpredictable things. In his late teens and early 20s, something inside Shin began to crack. Not out of a desire for liberty or a grand philosophical awakening. He was just starving. The constant hunger became louder than the fear. In a shocking revelation that he hid for over a decade, Shin admitted that his famous final escape was actually not his first attempt. He had managed to slip away from Camp 18 and cross the border into China. Not once, but twice. He experienced brief, terrifying moments of the outside world. He saw things he could not comprehend. But he had no money, no connections, and no understanding of modern society. He was caught by Chinese police and sent back to North Korea. When a political prisoner tries to escape and is caught, the punishment is typically immediate death. But the guards decided to make an example of Shin. They sent him back to the notorious Camp 14, to an underground torture facility. He was 20 years old. The guards stripped him naked. They bound his hands and feet, suspended him from the ceiling by a hook, and lit a charcoal fire underneath his back. The skin on his back literally roasted. He screamed until he passed out. The scars from this event are massive, permanent, and irrefutable. Doctors in South Korea and the United States have examined his body and confirmed that his scars perfectly match his descriptions of extreme torture. They also placed him in a cell so small he could neither stand up nor lie down straight. For 7 months, he lived in complete darkness, his body rotting, his spirit crushed. He was kept alive on a diet of insect-infested soup. And as a direct, brutal punishment for his attempted escape, the guards deliberately chopped off part of his right middle finger. He was no longer a human being. He was an animal, trained to survive at any cost. He ate rats. He ate frogs. He picked undigested kernels of corn out of animal waste just to have something in his stomach. But then, something impossible happened. The guards moved Shin to a textile factory within Camp 14. They assigned him to work next to a new prisoner, a man named Park. In the entire history of Shin's life, he had never met anyone like Park. Park was not born in the camp. He had lived in Pyongyang, the capital city. He had traveled. He had seen the world outside the electrified fences. As they worked the heavy machines, risking their fingers every single second, Park began to whisper to Shin. He did not talk about democracy. He did not talk about the United Nations. He did not talk about human rights. He talked about something much more powerful. He talked about food. Park described broiled chicken. He described barbecued pig. He described feasts where people could sit down and eat until their stomachs were completely full, and nobody would beat them. He described a world where food was not a weapon used by guards to control your every waking movement, but something freely available. And right then, a massive realization hit him. Could he actually eat that food? Could a prisoner like him, a boy born in the dirt, meant to die in the dirt, ever taste a piece of barbecued pig? He decided that the answer was worth dying for. He told Anderson Cooper in an interview years later that his definition of freedom was not the ability to vote. His definition of freedom was broiled chicken. He decided that he wanted to escape, eat as much chicken as he physically could, and then get shot the next day. As long as he died with a full stomach, it would be worth it. Shin and Park formed a plan. Because of his history, Shin was terrified. He remembered betraying his mother. He knew the cost of failure. But the hunger drove him forward. They were assigned to gather firewood near the top of a mountain, close to the perimeter fence. The fence was 10 feet tall, crackling with high-voltage electricity. The sun went down. The temperature dropped far below freezing. The guards were patrolling, their flashlights cutting through the falling snow. Shin and Park waited for a gap in the patrol. The moment came. They ran. But as they sprinted toward the fence, Shin slipped on the treacherous snow. He fell hard onto the frozen ground. Park did not wait. He lunged forward and threw his body between the thick wires of the fence, trying to pry them apart so they could squeeze through. But Park miscalculated. The high-voltage current surged through Park's body instantly. He was electrocuted on the spot. He died immediately, his body stuck between the wires, holding them apart. Shin was lying on the ground, watching the only friend he ever had die right in front of him. He had seconds to make a choice. The guards would be coming. The lights would be sweeping the perimeter. He did not hesitate. He crawled forward. He used the dead, smoking body of his friend as an electrical insulator. As Shin forced himself through the tiny gap, his bare flesh scraped against the live wire. The electricity burned deep into his legs, delivering a paralyzing shock. But because he was already slipping downward, his momentum and gravity violently pulled his body the rest of the way through. The dead weight of his friend had grounded the current just enough to keep his heart beating. Shin fell into the snow on the outside of the fence. He was free. He was out, But his nightmare was far from over. He was in the middle of the North Korean winter. He was bleeding heavily from his legs. He had no food, no map, and no idea how the real world functioned. He broke into a nearby farmer's barn. Inside, he found an old military uniform. By stealing it and putting it on, he was able to masquerade as a North Korean soldier at times, hiding right out in the open. He found some rice. For weeks, he moved like a ghost. He bribed border guards with food he had stolen. He crossed the frozen Tumen River into China. He worked menial labor jobs, hiding in the shadows, constantly terrified of being discovered and deported back to the torture chambers. Eventually, he met a journalist in China who recognized the sheer magnitude of his story. The journalist brought him to the South Korean embassy, and Shin was flown to Seoul. When he stepped into the free world, the culture shock was absolute. He described looking at modern society as looking at heaven. But he quickly realized he carried a darkness that heaven could not erase. He became the global face of North Korean human rights. He wrote a best-selling book. He testified before the United Nations Commission of Inquiry. His words caused international outrage. The North Korean government was so furious that they launched massive propaganda campaigns to discredit him. They even tracked down his father, who was still alive in Camp 18, and forced him to record a video calling his own son a liar. And this brings us to the most difficult part of the entire narrative: the reason Shin changed his story in 2015. When he first told his tale to the world, he hid the fact that he was in Camp 18. He hid his previous escapes to China. Most importantly, he lied about how he felt when his mother and brother were executed. Why? Put yourself in his shoes. You arrive in a new country. People start telling you about family, about love, about loyalty. You read books about the unbreakable bond between brothers. And then you look inside your own soul. You realize that you sent your own mother to the gallows, and you felt nothing but anger toward her. You realize that you are a monster created by a monstrous system. The shame was completely unbearable. He altered the timeline and the locations to protect himself from the judgment of the free world. He created a sanitized version of his life because the real version was too horrific for him to admit out loud. He thought people would hate him. He thought people would reject him. But when he finally confessed the truth in 2015, apologizing to the world and stating that he wanted to stop hiding, something remarkable happened. Human rights experts, psychologists, and audiences around the globe did not turn their backs on him. They realized that his confession actually made his story infinitely more powerful. His altered story was not the malicious lie of a con artist. It was the frantic cover-up of a severely traumatized victim. The fact that a government could completely destroy a child's understanding of love, turn him into an emotionless informant against his own flesh and blood, and torture him until he ate rats. That is the true horror of North Korea. The revised details did not change the core reality of his physical suffering. The scars on his back and the burn marks on his legs are real. The political prison camps are an absolute, documented reality. Shin Dong-hyuk escaped a living hell for a piece of broiled chicken. He risked electrocution just to feel full for one single night. Uncovering the uncensored truth behind stories like this is exactly why I spend hundreds of hours building these 3D documentaries. If you want to dive deeper into history's most insane and secretive events, hit that subscribe button right now. And if you want to witness another impossible escape, click the video on your screen to watch exactly how D.B. Cooper vanished from a hijacked plane in mid-air. I will see you over there.